And welcome back to Big Red Wired. We're going to be talking some spring football. I'm your host, Bobby Schneider, joined by Sam Ojeda and Kyler Cox. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow us on Twitter. So Nebraska's got spring football rolling, new coaches. What are you guys' expectations for spring ball for the Huskers?
Ooh, I think the big thing for spring ball is kind of figure out what you have, right? So there's a lot of unknowns with this team, specifically in the quarterback room. Like, we know who Calandria is, but we don't necessarily know how he's going to fit in this new, I don't remember what, fearless system, right? Is that Rule said he wants Dana to run his offense fearless?
He wants, Dana to be able to call it fearlessly and wants Anthony Calandria to be play fearless.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of a question that you don't know, and that's my main one on the offensive side of the ball. You could talk about the running back room, but for me, on the defensive side of the ball, is where does the front seven stand? People are talking about the front four, but I want to know the front seven, because you've got intriguing pieces like Vincent Shavers, Willis McGahee as returners, as well as the guys that they have brought in that, you know, are projecting to be in a decent spot. I mean, Chambliss is another great example of one of those newcomers, but overall, the whole front seven, not just front four.
Yeah, I think the comment that he wants to call the offense seriously is interesting, because you can kind of look back and backtrack that. What does that actually mean over the last 2 years? Why weren't you able to call it furiously? Right? We can talk about Dylan's mobility and all that, but at some point you have to answer that question. And I don't think it's been answered yet. Secondary is interesting to me. I like the transfers they brought in. McDougal's a good player. I think that's interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, we got to hear from Coach Rob Orich last Thursday, first media appearance as a Nebraska coach, and he was pointing out some guys at that nickel position that are really intriguing. They have guys from Genatone to Jameer Khan, who received a lot of high praise. Totally different build. I mean, Genatone is that big buff guy who also has a lot of speed. He ran, I believe, 10.8 in high school at the 100-meter dash. But Jameer Khan, he's under 6 foot, but is a scrappy guy as well.
Yeah, I think the thing is, there was a lot of turnover this offseason, just with the guys that, you know, whether you left the program or like a Hartzog, or you entered the portal and came back like a Braylon Prude. But there's just a lot of turnover in the secondary and the linebackers as well. And so I'm just curious, like you mentioned Genatone, right? Jacob Bauer is another one that you could throw into that conversation, right? I just think there's so many. This just is all filed under the unknowns for me. You know, it's not like we have extensive film on Genatone, or, you know, like we have film on guys like Rex Guthrie, Donovan Jones, but really spring ball, I think, is going to be full on analysis of Rob Urich being like, okay, here's my scheme. Here's what I am going to do, because Matt Rule said he's running his scheme and I'm not going to stop him. Right. Here's my scheme. Here's what I want to do. And who are the actual pieces I could use? I think there may be some surprises when, come game one. This is a lot of speculation, but come game one, you may not see the same names out there that were out there at the end of the season last year.
I think it's safe to pencil in Shavers, it's Marshall, Chambliss. I mean, the linebacker room is very intriguing because you brought in 3 linebacker transfers, and you're going to
like
rotate.
Will Hawthorne. I like
you
his
like
speed.
Hawthorne. I like Foster, and Orich said that they wanted to get bigger. That's why they added 3 portal linebackers as well. But at that defensive backfield, I love the look of it right now. You have bigger, you have more size. I know Jameer Khan is, I guess, an anomaly there. What?
Caleb Benning's undersized.
Not really. I mean, he's got buff.
He could tackle.
Yes, he tackled really well. He was one of the only ones that tackled in the bowl game, actually,
all season
for the Huskers. But I'm really high on Guthrie still. I know a lot of people wrote him off. He had shoulder surgery. He's out for the spring. Guys like Justin Rudd are still intriguing. I like this Genatone idea, though, as kind of a guy that can come in for certain situations, just to add almost another linebacker to that room, but he's also in that nickel position just because of the size and force. I mean, he did play running back last year. He started off his career as a linebacker at Nebraska when he transferred from Montana State as well. But you're always going to have that coach talk in the spring. That's just the nature of the game.
So much of it. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I really like Jameer Khan. I think he's the type of guy you look at him and it's like he's a Nebraska DB. He just kind of fits the mold there. Guthrie, I like him as a player too, but you look at guys that have been injured over the last, year or two. It's like, where does Bly Hill fit in if he ever comes back and gets healthy again, right? Like, there's a lot of unknowns there that I think, with the healthy guys in the spring, it gives them a chance to really get ahead of things.
I think the interesting thing, Nebraska, I mean, when it comes to player retention, I give Matt Rule an A. And they lose Keona Davis, but Malcolm Hartzog,
I almost think is one of those situations where Nebraska said, this is what we'll pay you. It's probably not what you want.
Well, and I think the thing, okay, people are like, yeah, Dylan Raiola. But Dylan Raiola, there were inklings of him being MIA before the offseason even began. So I think the interesting thing is, I'd give him an A when it comes to retention. There were a lot of players that he could have lost. Willis McGahee comes back, right? Vincent Shavers could have gone somewhere and got some money, right? You look at Cam Lenhart, probably could have transferred to a decent Power 4 program and gotten more money than he would at Nebraska. I think there's a lot of that. And so when we kind of talk about, a Bly Hill, a Braylon Prude, I'm trying to think of other examples from other positions.
I don't
Cortez Mills,
I don't see Braylon Prude factoring in.
Well, but my point is, I think it says something. Everyone kind of looked at last season as a disappointment. Fair, right? But when you look at the retention, I think that speaks to what Matt Rule. We said this last year, but what Matt Rule is building, right? Maybe not built, but is building. Whether Nebraska wins 4, 5, 6, 7 games next year, I think he's building something, and that is spoken through the fact that all of these players are willing to come back and play for him. A great example, Nazea Hunter. He could have gone to a high caliber program and played a role as one of the main wide receivers. And I'm not saying Nebraska didn't spend money this offseason, because I'm sure they did on their retention. He mentioned retention's a big part of this, but I think that really speaks to what Rule is doing and kind of the buy-in that he's getting from his players, and being able to return those leaders is going to help as well.
Well, I want to stay on the defensive side of the ball and then talk some special teams, because we got to hear from new coaches today, Roy Manning and Corey Brown. Some things that just stood out. He said that Nebraska was right on par with the top tier programs around the country. And you had a really good roster, is what he said, to build and develop. So that was kind of intriguing, just with the talent he evaluates there. And then when I asked him about just kind of his message, he said that there's no excuses for not being able to build a pass rush.
I think the Corey Brown,
or Roy Manning is who I'm talking about.
Oh, Roy Manning. Well, if you want to talk defense, I'm looking at, the defense as a whole, and you kind of look at Corey Brown kind of dove into it today as well. He was like, from his experience, he has been at stops where it has been develop, and not recruit. He said, this is from Robin Washut on 3 in his, little Nuggets article today. He said, Brown said his experience in developing players, especially guys that didn't have elite recruiting profiles at his previous stop, would help him at Nebraska. It goes beyond working with top players, as building depth is equally critical. I think that's huge, right? We talk about Nebraska and we talk about the trenches. The defensive line is a very difficult position to recruit out of the portal specifically. And I think the fact that he's coming in with the develop mindset over the recruit mindset, I think is a green flag.
I think it's interesting, and you mentioned those quotes. Those are things I don't take a lot of stock in, just because of how often have we heard those same exact things, right? One area that I think is interesting is, Manning said it today, right? They think they have enough to get after the quarterback. Is that going to be something that differentiates them from years past? You'd like to see that a little bit more this year. We'll see from the edge position.
Well, that's another thing I don't take any stock in, because we thought last year they had enough to go get after the quarterback, and that, at least from the linebacker room, and that flopped miraculously. So, again, what did you expect him to come out and say? We don't have enough to get after the quarterback. You knew he was going to get asked the question. He's going to give a PR response. And we talk about the wishy-washiness of April football, of spring football, excuse me.
It is February 25th.
Yes, it's February. Sorry, I'm a dunce sometimes. But the thing, I love Nebraska football. I love covering Nebraska football. It is a great gift. The problem specifically with Nebraska football is there is so much speculation and hype that happens. I drank enough Roulade last year that I convinced that Nebraska was going to win 10 games.
They had the schedule to win 10 games, and that's why the fan base is so checked out now, I feel. This year's a whole different monster to tackle. With you host Ohio State, Indiana, you travel to Eugene, you host Washington, you go to Iowa City. There's 5 games right there that you maybe are
you're not favored. I'll tell you that.
You might be favored against Washington, maybe, depending on how you're sitting it for that Halloween game. But when we talk about the pass rush, I like We mentioned Willis McGahee. He was a guy who redshirted last year. You were expecting big things. Everybody was. I was expecting big things from Willis McGahee. I was thinking Deshaun McCullough, while he's going to be beneficial for Nebraska, I was thinking McGahee's going to grab that jack position a couple games into the year, and you didn't see that. He was more impactful as a freshman, but Nebraska got him to come back, go out or pull him out of the portal to return the Lincoln. Williams-Nwaneri, you need a big year from him. Cade Petschok, you need him to develop. And just on that defensive line, you got guys that it's go time now. You have had a year. You've had a year to recover. Guys like Tyson Terry, Malcolm Simpson, two 2024 defensive line recruits. Those guys, or 2025, I'm sorry. But those were guys that were brought in that were out last year due to injuries. They're going to have to be ready to go. And then you also get another year of Riley Van Poppel, Cameron Lenhart, and stuff on that defensive line. So you do like the returning aspect that these guys have played now, but now it's time to go.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about getting to the quarterback all we want, but when you're giving up 200 rushing yards a game and don't have any sort of interior pressure from the defensive tackles, that's what matters. Van Poppel is going to be really interesting to watch for the spring and the summer, and then what he can do this fall, because there were a lot of expectations with him, right? Like Rule said it, you want to be the next Ty Robinson. Didn't really see that last year. So what can he do with a full offseason ahead going into next year? It'll be interesting to watch.
I want to ask you guys, so we got to hear from Brett Maher today. First time he spoke to the media, I believe, at all since he's been an assistant coach at Nebraska. Of course, he's taken over for Mike Eckler, who's now at USC. And I thought it was interesting how he said, yes, we're going to take what worked from Eckler, but we're also going to evolve what didn't work. And he said that he's going to put his own influence on it. Now, I think that has to also do with a lot of just this, what he wants to improve with the punting game and stuff, with net punting and everything as a whole. But I think he's confident. He was pretty gracious for just being from Nebraska. He's from Kearney, and of course, kicking and punting for the Huskers as well.
And can I go on a tangent? It's related to Brett Maher, but it's a pretty deep tangent. My biggest pet peeve about Nebraska athletics, which thank goodness they've gotten away from it, is nepotism. Drives me nuts. Tom Osborne, legend. In my opinion, the greatest football coach in college football history with what he was able to do from, recruiting the local. But I think, 20 years removed, 20, 30 years removed, Nebraska athletics is finally getting away from the let's be as connected to the old Nebraska athletics as we possibly can. How this ties to Brett Maher is this hire in no way, shape, or form feels like he was hired because he's also associated with the history of Nebraska athletics. And I think that's huge. I think he's capable of taking this job. If he had no connection to Nebraska athletics, I think he would have very easily gotten the job, when it comes to being not connected to Nebraska athletics, right? You look at the Scott Frost hire, now that it's public, the Bill Moose book really gave us a lot of insight into the Scott Frost hiring situation. It almost seemed like it was pure Nebraska relation that got Scott Frost onto Nebraska's campus. But Bill Moose was not going to hire Scott Frost initially, right? It was Chip Kelly, right? He had talked about hiring Chip Kelly. And I think Nebraska athletics is finally getting away from this. And I think the fact that, to me, Brett Maher does not scream he's hired because he's a former Husker is a refreshing feeling for me growing up in a Nebraska athletics program that was historically mediocre for football, at least.
Can I ask you a question about that? Now, I actually tend to agree with that take. Is it because it's at a position group as small as special teams? Like, is that why you think that is? Like, if he was similar situation to offensive coordinator, would you feel the same way?
Well, let me ask you this. I can't remember his name. Sean and Sipple talked about it multiple times on the podcast, but that offensive, the offensive systems guy for the Seahawks that was connected to Nebraska athletics.
Well, now I can't even think of his name.
I can't either. But if he would have come in and be an offensive coordinator, I would have been like, heck yeah, he's qualified. I am sorry.
Jake Peets.
Thank you. If Jake Peets comes here and he became the offensive coordinator instead of Dana Holgerson, I would have been like, yeah, it makes sense because he is purely qualified. Scott Frost was not qualified to be the coach at Nebraska. People were saying, yeah, 14-0 at UCF, offensive coordinator for Oregon, right? But if you are Nebraska athletics, you are not hiring someone who has not had head coaching Power 4 success. Look at Fred Hoiberg. if they would have, the other option from
Dana
Altman, which also would have been a great hire, right? But they go with Hoiberg, not because he's connected to Lincoln or Nebraska. I mean, he is, but that's not the reason they hired him. They hired him because he had Power 4 coaching experience in one of the best, arguably the best basketball conference in the country. Scott Frost was not that, right? He did not have that level of success at an elite conference as a head coach. Matt Rule, when the Big 12 was at its peak, is when he was at Baylor. And he had raging success when he was at Baylor, right? Those are the winning hires, not the hires that come from, we're going to take a flyer on a guy who's associated in Nebraska, right? Josh Peets does not give that vibe, right? And now he's probably going to go be an OC somewhere, right? In the NFL. Brett Maher also does not give that vibe.
I'll counter argue you a little bit. I love that he played at Nebraska, and he mentioned that today. He remembers competing for Big 12 and Big 10 championships during his stint from 2008 to 2012. He remembers beating Iowa year in, year out when he was at Nebraska. I like that edge because he was a part of a team that was winning 9 games a season. I like that he was a part of that under Bo Pelini. Yes, he wasn't connected to the 90s, but he knows what it takes to win in the Big 10. He was a part of those teams, and I think that's going to gel well. I mean, he's been here for 2 years already. But I do want to ask something that what Mike Eckler said in his USC press conference, if you haven't heard. Just the whole thing, he's like, I sure hope that Lincoln Riley comes into my meetings because Matt Rule didn't. Now, you can look at this 2 different ways because, one, Mike Eckler saying that's put more of an emphasis by having your head coach in those meetings. But at the other side of it, you
back off, let me coach.
Yeah, let your assistants do the job.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on that side. It's like, well, hey, you're letting your coach do the job.
It's almost like you trust him that much.
Yes, and I think that's more of a hat tip rather than having a hall monitor on you.
I mean, my opinion on that is anything that I would say would be completely pure speculation because we're not walking the halls of, the facilities. I don't think we'll ever get insight into that situation unless Matt Rule decides to write a book 15 years from now. But I think there was probably a lot going on there. I cannot speak on the character of either coach, right? That's not fair. But I am of a strong opinion that this is not going to affect Nebraska football all that much. I think Nick Humphrey is going to be a very underrated hire. Giving him that co-special teams title is huge. He understands Eckler, right? And what Eckler was trying to teach in terms of physicality, speed, explosiveness, and the scheme. And then Maher is just going to bring that professional kind of refinement onto the special teams unit.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Humphrey really is going to be good at helping coach the coverage.
That's who I imagine in practice being the hooter and holler, right?
Yeah, and then Maher is kind of like, okay, we got to do this.
Yep.
And then, but then you have Humphrey. It's like, you got to go down there and tackle that SOB type of thing with Humphrey.
Yeah. So the Eckler comments, I didn't see a video of him saying that. Did you guys see a video?
Yeah, I watched the press conference.
Okay, see, I didn't see a video. I saw it.
Come on, Kyler. I have a hard
time. For me, I have a hard time taking a lot of stock in things that I don't actually see somebody say at face value. I think it's interesting when you look at how that situation unfolded. He was talking in March, right after he got hired, Eckler was, about how Matt Rule is the greatest leader he'd ever been around as a head coach. And then now we're saying that in January. I don't know what that comment fully means. And I think Sam hit it on the head, right? I don't think that affects Nebraska in any way, shape, or form, especially from the special teams unit. I think the groundwork's already been laid there.
You didn't see your punt returner leave. Kenneth Williams left as the kick returner because Matt Rule almost encouraged him to go, get his money elsewhere and go be an impact player elsewhere. But you didn't see your kicker leave. You didn't see your punter leave. You didn't see the Australian punter that Eckler specifically recruited decommit. He still signed with Nebraska. There was no wavering from the team based on Eckler leaving. And this is where I can speculate, right? How much of the special teams was maybe Nick Humphrey?
I mean, Eckler instilled that system.
I understand, but the fact that no one left, maybe the players had Kyler.
But the portal was closed.
Guys, I understand, but I'm sure we have all played for coaches who were like schematically and how they teach the game. They are great coaches, but maybe personally not my favorite coach. And this is pure speculation, but that could have been the situation with Mike Eckler. And that's why no one left, because they loved the scheme, didn't necessarily love the coach.
I'll tell you what, I think that people should buy a little bit of Brett Maher stock. That's all I'm saying. I don't think you need to worry about a significant drop off. That's what my takeaway is so far with Brett Maher. I want to ask you guys really quick before we close out this football hit is just, when you look at the offensive side, Dana Holgorsen talking about the running backs last week, that's a hot topic. I think we were all just wondering, man, you would have liked to probably see Nebraska get a running back out of the portal. Just maybe somebody that had some proven production in the Power Four. Nebraska didn't. They bring in Jamal Rule. Of course, you return Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, and you have Quentin Ives, who's been in the program for a couple years. Dana Holgorsen, what stood out to me when he said that Jamal Rule probably runs better than any of them. I think that this is a guy that they need to have ready to go.
I think the confidence was clear that they have in the running back room. And I can't remember if it was a coach that said it or Sean wrote it. Sean Callahan wrote it. I don't really remember, but it was any running back, any 3-star level running back for the budget that they had to pick up in the portal is not that much better than what they have. And I think that is, when you look big scope on what Nebraska did in the transfer portal, they went with their immediate needs. They don't need an Emmett Johnson replacement. If Dylan Raiola was still here in a quarterback that lacks mobility, then maybe you needed an Emmett Johnson level replacement, right? Like a Chamar Brown, excuse me. But in a situation where you're bringing a quarterback who just ran for north of 700 yards, I think you're going to be okay with the Mekhi Nelson or an Isaiah Mosey who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield for you and let your quarterback be the dynamic one. And, you could just have a running back who's going to have maybe 800 all-purpose yards versus, 1,200 that Emmett Johnson.
I think Emmett had like 1,700 or 1,800 all-purpose wise. But I like that you bring up Calandry because that's going to open up the offense a lot. And then just across this lineup, Isaiah Mosey, Kyler, when you look at him, I do not see him being a guy, although he's over 200 pounds. He's listed at 6'1" or 6 foot, 210 pounds. I still do not see him being a guy that you can consistently run north and south in the Big Ten, but I love him as outside zone. I love him as like that duck type running back, almost what Scott Frost did with Wan'Dale Robinson, other than running him in between the tackles.
Ruining him.
But I love that idea of having him be a screen guy, run outside zone, run stretch with him. You could have Mekhi Nelson still kind of be that guy you can lean on, but I like Jamal Rule as well. But how do you look at that room?
Yeah, I really like Mosey, just the way that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's such a versatile player, obviously came in as a receiver. I think that you see Nebraska, a lot of times when we compare this running back room to last year, it's easy to get caught up in what we saw from Emmett Johnson, right? Like, and Sam talked about it. We have Calandry now. The offense isn't even going to be similar. Like, it's not going to be the same offense. So when you pair Mekhi Nelson and Mosey, and you have that pass catching ability out of the backfield, it just opens things up. And I think that you might see a lot of explosiveness from him this year.
While we're on the offense, I am going to give an extremely bold prediction. And Isaiah Hunter is going to flirt with the 1,000-yard receiving number because I think his ability to be in the middle of the field and his ability to break things open in in open space just pairs so well with what Calandry is going to be able to do outside the pocket. I am just itching to see Isaiah Hunter 25 yards down the field and Anthony Calandria hitting him on the run. I think, come this time next year, you could be looking at Isaiah Hunter as, oh shoot, I hope he comes back and he's not a top 3rd round pick.
I totally could see that. And I mean, you just watch Anthony Calandria's highlights. By the way, go check out my highlight package I made of Anthony Calandria with some good music playing as well. But the ability on a broken play now. How many times did you see that with Tommy Armstrong? How many times did you see it with Taylor Martinez?
Adrian Martinez too. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, but yeah, those receivers it's scramble drill. It's simple, but now you have that ability to do that. When Dylan was doing it, he would sit in the pocket for 4 seconds. And then when he tried to run, it was too late and he was down on the ground.
And there's two parts to that coin, right? You have the offensive line part, but I think TJ Lateef gave you a glimpse of what it can look like when the pocket breaks down. He was very good at running up the middle in his 3 games, but I think Calandry is going to take kind of what the flash of kind of what Dana wants to do when a play breaks down, and it's just going to bring the maturity and the experience level to it that I don't think we've ever seen. Well, in recent memory. I'm sorry. In recent memory, we haven't seen it.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this football hit. If these guys have time, we're going to do more football hits this spring. For Bobby Schneider, Sam Ojeda, and Kyler Cox signing off, be sure to subscribe to Big Red Wire.